Oh, good morning, everybody. My name is Peter Richmond, and I'm from Plug and Play. And today we're going to be talking about how recruitment agencies can leverage their brands to increase their marketing performance, better align with their customers, and turn more prospective leads into new clients, as well as attracting more candidates. And so the brand as it pertains to growing businesses, increasing revenue, establishing your place in the world with regards to growing a successful recruitment business. Now, brand for us is a huge topic, and I appreciate in a webinar we're going to be touching on quite a lot of different areas, quite light touch. So one of the things that we're going to do is look at brand strategy. We're going to be looking at things like vision, mission, purpose, values, personas, audience archetypes. And on the other side, we're going to be looking at brand identity, so things like logo, color schemes, fonts, shape, form, and that sort of thing. But one of the things that I personally really find fascinating about a brand, and my favorite definition of a brand, is that a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And I think this kind of pertains to so many examples from all sorts of different businesses. Sayings like, nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM, or a Lannister always pays their debts. Or, for example, I mean, we're going through getting some work done from some builders, and there's a fast builder, and there's a cheap builder, and there's a quick builder, and there's a good builder. And actually trading off the back of your reputation is hugely important. But whether you're in fintech or deep tech or clean tech, or if you are in schools or education, or if you're in any given niche or sector or vertical, or you specialize in product managers or dentists or whatever it is, finding your niche and being able to have a really clear way of aligning with your target audience is super important. So the alignment piece here is probably the running thread through this webinar. And the thing about alignment is that it enables you to establish and be very clear about your position in the marketplace. It resonates with your values, which we'll come on to a little bit more. But the key thing about having alignment is it enables your team. It enables your team, but it also enables your customers to refer you effectively, because your customers will be able to say, oh, you should use these guys. They're specialists in this area. Oh, you should use these guys because they're really good at these sorts of roles, or in this location, or in these sectors. And so by putting together a brand in such a way where you stand for something, and the brand has a position in the market where people can clearly understand the value proposition and how the value proposition gets executed, is hugely important. So brand in this sense isn't about, making something pretty or making something look better. This is about defining the business in such a way that it can really grow, and that you're enabling your team, you're enabling your customers, you're going to improve your conversion rate on your website, you're going to improve the performance of your marketing on LinkedIn. And so having a good brand is going to enable you to attract those high quality leads. It's going to provide you with that consistency, and it's going to enable the marketing team, rather than having to go through a process of what shall we create in marketing, and then how do we go through doing that. Having a good brand can fast forward that process for you and create more effective marketing more quickly. So as I was saying, these kind of two key areas, the brand strategy, the purpose, vision, mission, values, and personas and archetypes, is kind of one important and probably preceding side of the brand strategy process before going into brand identity. And it's bringing these two things together that's going to deliver a really successful look and feel for your business. So an effective brand combines these visuals with the communication. And I think to bring this to life a little bit, what we can do is go through a couple of examples together. We did recently launch a new website and brand for Give a Grad a Go. The great thing about aligning with your target audience, especially when you have a name like Give a Grad a Go, is that, of course, being specialists in graduate recruitment, they're already carving themselves a niche with their name, which does make a big difference. But actually, within the design ecosystem and within the brand strategy, the way they communicate, there's kind of this youthful, witty vibe about the wording and how they market themselves. And we needed to create a design system and a visual aesthetic that was going to be youthful, reflective of their target audience and target marketplace. And so what we needed to do was bring that visual aesthetic of being very youthful, of being witty, of being dynamic, alongside the brand strategy, the comms of how they have their tone of voice and how they define themselves in the marketplace. So bringing these two things together is working really well for GiverGrad. We launched them in January, and we've increased their market penetration by about 18%, which is pretty good for a company with, I think, nearly 100 recruiters. So it's one of those where delivering on this can make a huge difference to driving the growth within your company. So GiverGrad's a great example of having done that. Another great example is Bond Global. Actually, Bond, when we started working with them, what we're able to do is focus in on not only their design aesthetic with regards to the visual language of the company, obviously very different positioning to Give a Grad a Go, both in terms of the seniority of the candidates, but also the types of companies. They also have an embedded business model rather than a contingent business model. So it is quite different. But one of the key things that I love about the brand that we put together for Bond is that we were really shooting for resonance with the target audience. And resonance is super important, because this is then alignment, but it's plus the ability to provide that intangible feeling where people go, oh, it just felt right. We worked with you because it just felt right. And actually what they're describing is resonance through alignment. And resonance through alignment is about saying, the reason you exist and the reason your company is doing what it does and the reason we exist have this meeting point. So for example, with Bond, we've got here things like, we're here for the visionaries, there's no planet B, as part of their alignment copywriting. They focus on deep tech and clean tech, for example, in their spaces. Now, their customers who are in those sort of niche sectors, who are looking for senior roles, and they're very fast-growing businesses in highly funded sectors. What they're saying is we're trying to capture carbon, or we're trying to improve fusion energy, or whatever. And actually, the people within those businesses believe in having a brighter future, in the fact that there's no planet B. And so what they're doing is they're creating this alignment of vision between, okay, the reason your business exists is because you're capturing carbon. You employ people who believe in, being green, who believe in a brighter future. And what you're doing is you're aligning yourselves by saying, we believe the same things you do. And by believing the same things you do, we're actually able to align ourselves in such a way where we get that intangible resonance between that alignment. So that brand alignment is super important. You can do it through tone of voice. You can do it with brand visuals, but leaving a positive mark on the planet is kind of one of Bond's stated objectives, and the visual dynamic of bringing this together has been super successful. So that brand strategy piece that I was describing of alignment is something that you can absolutely do yourselves. And I think going into this, I would say, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, because the way that we go about doing this is something you can get really caught up in. You can end up with lots of workshops and nasal gazing and then nothing out the other side if you're not careful. What you want to do is try and create something where you have a better documented vision for how you articulate yourselves and how you position yourselves in your market than you do now. So getting something more effective than you have is the goal. Getting something that's absolutely perfect is going to prevent you from getting anywhere. So focusing in on how do you think about these things in a discrete way so that you can better enable yourselves to create that value proposition and marketplace alignment. So finding your why, I feel, is a great way of finding alignment. There's a great talk on YouTube by a guy called Simon Sinek, which is called Start With Why. And so if you YouTube Simon Sinek Why, or Start With Why, you should find it. It's a TED talk from 10, 15 years ago. Poor quality video, incredible presentation. And it's one of those where what you'll see is how thinking more discreetly about why, how, and what can help you understand a business's value proposition and its alignment with its customer. So, for example, here at Plug and Play, we believe that every business can become a market leader. And so while on the what spectrum, we do branding and we do websites, we do digital marketing and marketing strategy, there's lots of pieces of what we do, but people don't come to us because of just what we do. They don't choose to go with us because of what we do. They choose to go with us because their goal and objective of growing their business becoming more successful, increasing the market penetration, pertains to becoming a market leader, being driven to grow that business, looking for those outcomes. And so the way that we bridge this gap between Plug and Play and our customers is saying, well, actually, we believe that any business can become a market leader. And how we go about doing that is by focusing on strategy. It's focusing on quality. It's about delivering results. It's about being outcomes oriented. So being an outcomes oriented business is on the how spectrum of focusing in on the detail, by picking strategies we can win, by identifying the strengths of our customers and then executing it in brand and in web, is the reason why people choose to go with us. They go with us because we can help them improve their market penetration. They go with us because we can improve their conversion rate. They grow with us over time because we can help them find more new customers more often and help them grow their businesses off the back of it. And so that's, for example, Plug and Plays. But you could argue similar points, for example, with Apple. Apple wanting to challenge the status quo. And how they go about that is by investing in design and usability. And then what people buy of like phones and watches and laptops and stuff. But actually, the way that they've done that is by investing in design and investing in usability. So it's a really interesting way of thinking discretely about that process. And what it does, taking Bond as an example, is by having the resonance of shared vision that they have with their customers, is that's super enabling. So by putting their content strategy together off the back of doing their audience personas and archetypes, what they're able to do is create a communication framework that the recruiters within the business understood. And so what we've got here is just some snapshots of some of the recruiters and talent partners at Bond who are embedded within their various customers. And these are all, individuals with their own take on the world, with their own perspectives, with their own tone of voice. But what they're actually able to do is they're able to communicate really effectively Bond's take, Bond's view, Bond's position, Bond's persona in their own tone of voice. So they're bringing together them as an individual and the brand. And they're able to do that with the kind of psychological safety of not getting it wrong. They're not going to put something on LinkedIn that's going to get them in trouble with, the powers that be. They're actually super enabled to post things. They are enabled to say things because they've got a framework by which they can do it. And that's clearly understood. So feeding into that kind of persona development and archetype development is the taking of that why, how, and what, and stretching it into who we're targeting. And so a persona in this case is an individual, a person, and an archetype is the bringing together of that person with a business. So we need to think about things like key traits and pain points, their goals and objectives, the purchasing process. There could be a number of things around, sectors, verticals, company size, number of hires per year. You could put almost anything into it. The point is finding the defining features and the pertinent features that make a difference to your ability to interact with the customer. Okay, so when we're thinking about the archetypes, using a format like this is super helpful. We would probably suggest starting with a caricature of some friendly face customers. So if you go, oh yeah, so we work with Jenny from XYZ company, caricature Jenny, her position, what her previous track record is like, what's she like as a person, as an individual, why did you get on really well with Jenny? What was it about collaborating together that worked really well? Is it on an individual basis? How does that work? What was the things that were going on in the business that made this a really successful collaboration? Because ultimately, those symbiotic relationships of you as a recruitment business and as customers who are looking to employ, bringing those together needs to be that symbiotic vibe. And so if we're actually able to resonate with those individuals in the business and have a successful relationship, what about that business, what about that person can we leverage to find more Jennies, find more best customers? And so using a framework like this, and if you do want these slides afterwards, do please reach out to us and we can send them to you. But I'd advocate for looking at the rows and thinking about, okay, what is pertinent to our sector, our space, what is pertinent to our niche that we operate in, what's pertinent to the archetype and the audience, how long have they been there, like what's their decision-making process, how do they get sign off, like what's their recruitment process like, what technology do they use, whatever it is, and building this out, because off the back of the communication example that you have here, you can enable your employees, your recruiters to actually drive the business growth online, offline. And by doing so, that will become commonplace for your customers to be able to refer you using your communication standards. From a high level perspective, the brand strategy overview is super important. There's lots of dovetailing with the why, how, what, so you can think about how your vision, mission, and values align with your why, how, what process, because in doing so, you're going to create cut through in your marketing messaging. So again, you can use a framework like this to augment your thinking. So the key things that I would suggest that you take away, and a lot of businesses either don't do this, don't do it well, or haven't done it often or recently enough, is create those personas and archetypes, and do that in collaboration with the people who are at the coalface. You need to understand, right, what's the feedback loop we're getting from the market? Like, what are people saying about hiring right now? What are people saying about the roles that we're hiring right now? How does that pertain to our personas and archetypes? What are we seeing in sectors that are growing? What are we seeing in sectors that are declining? How is this going to influence the conversations that we're having on a day-to-day basis with clients and with candidates? Develop your why, get that cut through of brand resonance and what you stand for, and the purpose behind the business, and how that dovetails in a symbiotic way with both candidates and clients. Consider why your clients and candidates choose to work with you. How can you get that feedback loop where you take the positive impact that you're having on collaborating with your best customers, and how can you bring that to bear to actually build on it and roll it out across all of your recruiters and all of your touch points, so that you can build out a much greater sales and marketing ecosystem where you can drive revenue growth. So we've talked a bit about brand strategy. We've talked about how you might focus in on those key areas of comms, communication, position and alignment, value proposition development. And that then feeds into the visual aesthetic of the business. Now, the visual aesthetic of the business is super important, and most SMEs do this badly. Most SMEs will have a logo, they will have a font maybe, they might have a color scheme, but that's probably where it stops. There's 23,500 recruitment businesses in the UK, and actually most of them don't have a brand identity. They might have a logo, but they don't have a brand identity. And again, I wouldn't get too hung up on saying, you'll hear things on LinkedIn in particular from people being like, oh, if you can cover up the logo and you still know what company it's from, then you've got a brand identity. But actually, that's not entirely true, because for most SMEs, that's never going to happen. They don't have decades of consumer marketing and hundreds of millions of pounds to spend on brand recognition, which is really what that is. What you can do, though, is you can put together something that's professional. You can put together something that is identifiable. You can put together something that resonates with your audience, and looking at the ways in which you can use design to actually distinguish yourself from your competition. So what I would say is that most SMEs can benefit from extending their design ecosystem into brand shape and form, of using different shapes, forms, and patterns in vectors alongside photography. And bringing those two things together is the thing that most SMEs don't do. And it's super important, because this isn't about nasal gazing and coming up with something that's prettier than the old one. This is about delivering revenue. And so when Adobe have enormous, vast amounts of data on internet usage, and 38% of users will leave a website if they don't like the design. I mean, when you look at bounce rates across the recruitment space, and I've heard bounce rates as high as 75% in recruitment, and it's one of those things where 38% of people are leaving just because they don't like the look of it, and often that's in a couple of seconds. Actually, this is a tremendous opportunity, because reducing that bounce rate is going to increase your performance in Google. Reducing that bounce rate is going to increase your conversion rate optimization. It's not only going to help in terms of your website, it's going to help in terms of any offline marketing. It's going to help in terms of your candidates advocating for you, your clients advocating for you, your LinkedIn profiles. So having this design ecosystem can make a tremendous difference to revenue. It's not about just looking pretty. And so when we're thinking about brand identity, and this is the Give a Grad a Go example, which actually, I dare say has worked tremendously. If we think like, so we did their brand, their website, we did an employer portal. We've brought all of this together, and this week I'm delighted to say that we actually won a Webby Award, which is like a web design Oscar for the Give a Grad a Go work. So it's a tremendously successful example. They already had an enormous marketing footprint, and now their market penetration has increased by about 18% since January. So where are we now? We're at the end of April. So it's one of those where, in a short space of time, you can make a huge difference to a business by delivering on brand and delivering on web together. So their brand identity, what you can see here, we're not zooming in on the logo as such, but what we can see is the different shapes, forms, colors. So using the speech mark, using the pentagons, hexagons, nonagons, triangles that we've actually put together with the different color tones, the gradients, the typography, the patterns and the patternation that kind of leads into some of those pieces can make a massive difference. There's also a great, when you have those design systems, as marketeers, you can use tools like Adobe Express, for example. So if you go to express.adobe.com, what you can actually do, for example, in social, is it has all the predefined shapes, formats for all videos, GIFs, and things of Instagram, of LinkedIn, of different sizes, of the swipe throughs or the pull downs of different social media platforms. And you can just drag and drop in your assets and create really interesting social media posts very, very quickly with no design skills. And that's made much easier, again, if you have a design ecosystem. So if you've got assets and you've got color schemes and you've got fonts and you've got shape and form and you can bring those things together, you'll find that all of your content actually becomes super easy to get out. And you're not stopping yourself from posting things by going, oh, we need to get a designer to do that. You're actually saying we are now enabled. And by enabling your recruiters, by enabling the wider marketing team without having to use designers, is a great way of actually delivering more output more often and increasing that surface area of your marketing online. And the thing is you don't have to be a huge business to do this. This actually isn't a recruitment example. This is for a small IT company. They're like 15 people. But actually by, again, investing in shape, form, and the way that imagery and that shape and form comes together, they're still able to differentiate themselves in the marketplace. Most IT companies are blue. Most IT companies, don't actually invest in the way that they're going to represent their imagery and their content. And so they've really defined themselves in the marketplace and are standing out tremendously, which is obviously the goal. And there's some great examples. I dare say these actually are all customers of ours. But heytempo.com, top left here, amazing design ecosystem. Do go and take a look at that, or Give a Grad a Go, top right. Shape, form, and color, again, really stand out. Bond Global, obviously the types of roles, employees and clients are all very different, but we're super aligning with those sectors, with those markets, and with those personas to deliver something really high performance. And again, with Bernd Sheehan, bottom right, very technical, developing community ecosystems within London in particular around technology roles. So across all of these different businesses, we've delivered design ecosystems that can really represent the brand strategy visually, which is kind of the key driver to their success in rolling out their brand. So what can you do? Well, you can align your visual brand with your niche. And when you think about niche, think about things like geographic location. I mean, so many recruitment businesses will find that within 20 miles of their office is most of their customers, and certainly within 50 miles of their office. You'll think about sectors, you think about role seniority, you can think about role type. How can you carve out the niche where you get the most resonance, and how can you increase your ability to attract, retain and grow clients with you, developing that symbiotic relationship where you can drive market success for both you and your clients. Consider how your brand elements can be combined and used, especially with imagery, photography, shape and form, color, fonts, and use things like Adobe Express to put together some really compelling visuals without needing a designer. And that really means that you've got those brand assets to the ready and you're enabling your team, which are the two primary functions here. This is about how can you do more, better marketing more often by leveraging your brand, by being really clear on your value proposition and getting alignment between your team, your company, your clients, and your candidates. And by getting alignment through all of those three areas, you'll be able to deliver a high-performing, high-growth business. Because by doing that, what you're doing is increasing your market penetration by increasing your surface area awareness and delivering greater conversion rate by having that intangible resonance with your target audiences. So there's quite a lot in there in quite a short space of time. I really appreciate you turning up for the webinar today. Obviously at Plug and Play, we deliver brand, we deliver websites, we deliver SEO. We'd love to talk to you about your brand and your website. But if you do have any questions afterwards, do please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And obviously, if you do want to use the crib sheets from the slide deck, then you're very welcome to do so. And you can email us and we can, by all means, send you a copy of the webinar today. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.